I guess I'll give an official introduction. This is episode or Rev 1 point Cathy. I don't know if what numbers we're given anymore. We have Cathy Rinne, is it? Is that how you pronounce
Yes.
your last name? Cathy Rinne with us from Flexline Automation. So first, Daniel Stanphill from Aurora Boardworks. We'll just go around because I'm sure we're gaining at least like 3 new listeners a week. So Sean, you want to introduce yourself?
Sean Kincaid with K&F Electronics.
And I'm Elias Malfavon with Metal Etch Services.
Okay, so Cathy, thank you so much for joining us. We've been talking a little bit. Tell us how easy was it, first off, to even be able to join us? How many chores did you have to put off on somebody else to make this happen?
I'm actually the only one here holding down the fort right now. So I had to hurry up. You guys were trying to get your kids to bed. I was trying to get my cows fed and my horses fed. And you heard the St. Bernard barking a little while ago. So I was trying to make sure everybody would be calmed down so I'd have a few minutes where you wouldn't have to hear the whole barnyard animal sanctuary / whatever zoo you might want to call it for the night. So
Speaking of cows, I seen a LinkedIn post, I don't know if that was today, where you said you got a call from your daughter and it said, I got all the cows are in the middle of the road or something like that?
yeah, well, see, my daughter Lauren we're a family business, so she works with us, and so she had a customer call in St. Louis today, and so she walked into my office and she's like, Mom, neighbors just called. All of our cows are out on the lower road. I'm on my way to St. Louis, can't get them in, so tag, you're it. And so I had to run home, mid-morning and chase some cows and get those guys back in. And fortunately, they knew where they needed to go and that they were in trouble. So, it wasn't too terribly difficult. But that's a typical day in my life, actually.
One thing we bonded over a couple months ago was I found out that cows can actually run faster than humans. I think the average speed of a cow was like 25 miles per hour. But Daniel was dismissing it. He's had a lot of experience with cows. But I found that
I was dismissing it.
Well,
they can. They can absolutely run fast. The thing is, they just don't. They are so peaceful and docile, and I remember being initially pretty afraid of them. I worked on a dairy. I went to a Christian boarding academy, Cathy, and worked on a dairy starting the summer before my freshman year. So I was working there a few months before I even turned 14, and then worked there all throughout the school year too. But they had 300 cows that they milked twice a day, and then
wow,
all the calves and everything. So the students did all the work on the farm and dairy. They had 1,000 acres, probably 600 cows of all, various ages or whatever. And there was 3 adults supervising all the kids who were working to pay off the school bill and all that. So when I first started there, I was pretty terrified of the cows being a city slicker, but they're so calm and tame. They have no idea. They have no intelligence to realize or even if they do realize, they have no desire to hurt you, or they don't realize that they can just run you over if they feel like it. If you yell at them and point where to go, they just kind of calmly go where you lead them to go. I mean, that's been my experience anyway.
That's dairy cows.
That's true.
We raise beef cattle, and they're a little bit spicier, I think, than the average dairy cow. And I can tell you, they can run pretty fast, especially if they see that you left the gate open and they're just a little closer to it than you are. You better believe they can run fast. But these gals all knew they were in trouble, and I chased them a little bit with I drive a Ford Explorer, and it's chased a few cows in its day, and so you never know what you're going to see when you come to Flexline Automation. You just never know.
We should give you a chance to describe what do you do mostly at FlexLine Automation, or what? Go ahead and give the whole spiel of what your company is about and all the different. I know you guys have advanced quite a bit, offer more than you used to. So what all different kind of
Yeah.
product lines and stuff do you do now?
Well, this will be actually in December, our 40th year. So we started mainly in conveyance. Actually, we started our business on the farm in the bay right next to the combine. So definitely, we have those deep Midwestern farm roots, that kind of work ethic, that whole thing. We did conveyance for a number of years and basic automation. I mean, not just, straight conveyors like you could buy, if Amazon sold conveyors. We did a lot of special integration, a lot of devices, that kind of thing. Um, Probably about 10 or so years ago, I kind of took a look at the way business was changing, manufacturing was changing, realized that, conveyance was becoming more of a commodity type item. And I kind of saw the industry taking a turn to more full integration. And so it seemed like a good idea to get into robotics, which we're really just kind of starting in a more um, widespread, I guess, way. More companies were looking at that type of automation. So it just seemed like a great idea to move into that. And um, so we took that turn, and turns out that it did go that direction. And now robotics make up the majority of our business. We do complete integration. So that would be like robots, box erectors, labelers, check weighers, anything that a customer would need in the system. So it's kind of a cool job because every project is different.
Do you
Our
have a particular niche, like any particular industry you see more of, or is it super
well,
broad?
it is super broad. Um, Lately, our claim to fame, we have a patent pending robotic box erector, and that's kind of been a really big hit, surprisingly. And, what industry doesn't use cardboard boxes, right? And so basically, not a lot of people have room for these giant box erector machines that can only fold one, maybe two boxes, and there's a big changeover. A lot of small, mid-sized manufacturers, they have multiple sizes of boxes. They need to be able to fold those different sizes, maybe two different types, and they don't have room for a machine to do that. So that's where our box erector really comes in. It's a small footprint. It can fold multiple box sizes from a single pick point. We can fold FOL or RSC boxes, so do two different types of boxes from a single pick point with no changeover. So it really kind of frees up that person from having to stand there and build boxes for an 8-hour shift, which is like the world's worst job ever. And and I know for a fact that it is, because when we do trade shows, I am the person who has to unfold boxes in under 8-hour shift. So I can speak with definite experience that's something that if you can automate it, you definitely need to automate it. So that's been a really big deal for us. And then we're doing a lot of custom spins on that. We're working right now on a gluing solution. Um, so it's just really been fun to watch the business evolve. And 40 years experience really seems like a lot, right? But I can tell you guys, it's like the majority of stuff is obsolete. The majority is like it's already obsolete. It's not really 40 years of experience that matters. It's really what's the last 40 days? What's the last 40 weeks? Because technology is changing that quickly, and if you don't evolve with it, and if you're not staying with it, and you're not really trying to adapt and adopt, then you aren't going to stay relevant. And that's been my job at Flexline, is to keep us relevant. And so, we're always looking at adding new products. We're doing shrink wrap, we're doing stretch wrap, as I say, check wears, you name it. We really will do whatever the customer needs us to do, and we're robot agnostic. We are Universal Robot CSIs. They actually promote our box director on their website as a UR plus, but we can definitely integrate a variety of other robots as well. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. We do whatever you need us to do.
Well, it's super impressive. You mentioned trade shows. That was one of the biggest reasons I was scrambling to try and get you on immediately, because I'm hoping we can run into each other next week. I'm getting to walk the floor at IMTS. I know you plan on going. Is Lauren going with you, or is it just you?
Lauren and I are going to go. We're going to be at the show Monday through Wednesday. IMTS has not been a show that we've done. I'm so old that I remember when IMTS was International Machine Tool Show and not Manufacturing Technology Show. I think they made that change like sometime around like 1990 or something. It comes so close to Pack Expo for us. We are going to be exhibiting in 3 different booths at Pack Expo. And so trying to get ready for IMTS and then turn right around, get everything back in and turn it back around for Pack Expo is not something that I've been able to convince Lauren that we really need to do. So we're hoping to go up, take a walk around and see if it's a good fit for Flexline, and if it's something that we are going to add to our show schedule in the future, since it is manufacturing technology. And, I think we need to stay relevant there. So we'll see. We'll see if that's a show we start doing, next time around.
Go ahead, Elias.
You've mentioned kind of staying fresh and keeping relevant, obviously in your product offering. I think one of the things that attracted all 3 of us to your profile, and probably a quality that transcends every industry, is some of your social marketing techniques. I think
yeah, for sure.
I have written in my show notes that you have a big digital footprint, and it includes LinkedIn, which is where we saw you, but also TikTok and X and some of these more modern platforms. So I wanted to chat with you about that for a second. How did you come to get onto those platforms, and how did you become so affluent at using those avenues for getting your name out there?
Well, I have always had a pretty big social media footprint. I joined Facebook back when Lauren was in college. Well, I guess right when it was first invented, because, what you want to do is like spy on your kids, right? You want to know what's going on. And she was smart enough to block me, but her friends weren't. And so
Like the back door.
find out what was going on. So I've always done social media. How it ended up that I ended up on TikTok is Lauren came into my office one day and I pulled something out of my Rolodex, and she's like, "Mom, what is this ancient device you have?" And this is like, "Oh, well, this is my Rolodex." And she's like, what? And then I started going through it, and I started to kind of be like, "Oh my God, 3/4 of my contacts are retired or dead." Like, Flexline automation needs a rebranding, right? You laugh, but that's
Just
what
a good indicator.
As long as I have. And so we hired this local company to come in and like give us a new logo and a big rebrand. And they wanted us to have all of this social media presence. And Lauren, my little millennial, as are you guys, right? has this aversion to social media that I don't know if you guys have it, if that's like a millennial across the board thing, or if mine's just special. But we were making all these really cool videos, and I don't know if you guys have seen like my flamethrower video, and
Yeah.
and then I did one where I dress up as my husband and do this like whole robot emporium. I mean, we were making all of these really great videos, and they were out on YouTube, and it's like crickets. Nobody was watching them, and so we were having to rewrite all the copy for this marketing group because they didn't really know anything about our industry, or kind of how to even do B2B type business. So we were writing all the copy anyway, and so I'm like, you know what? Let's just let them go. And one of the last things they said, as the door hit them in the backside was, well, if you really want somebody to watch your videos, you need to do TikTok. And Lauren looked at me and she's like, not it. I was like, okay. So, I always joke that I found myself a 12-year-old to show me how to operate it, and that's really kind of true. And so I started a TikTok, and the whole TheConveyorCougar thing is actually kind of Lauren's fault too. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard this story, and I know a lot of people have, and so I hate to take the time to say it, but we were in a sales meeting and we walked out, and I was like, Lauren, when did I become the old lady in the room, right? I'm like, I'm trying to sell all this equipment to these young kids. I'm like, I feel like such a cougar. And she was like, yeah, Mom, you're a TheConveyorCougar. And I was like,
Light bulbs.
and then she hates that. She absolutely, it is the most trendy thing ever for her.
Nice.
And so when I started my TikTok and I started it with TheConveyorCougar, she would actually get phone calls, and I could hear her in her office go, no,
Yeah.
it's my mom, And the TikTok was just kind of a springboard for me because I wasn't smart enough to really use like Canva or Photoshop and some of the better film editing, video editing software. It was real easy for me to use TikTok Studio, and I could like throw music to something, and so it was just easy. I could sit in my office 15 minutes in the morning. I could have a TikTok. I could share it out across all of our other social media platforms. People seem to like my song choices.
That's what I was about to say. Your song choices are impeccable. That was the first thing that would catch me. They were so perfectly matched to the theme or the tone of the video itself. But
What's
always
the one?
always masterfully done.
What's the
thank
one
you.
with your daughter where the robot is it Somebody's Watching Me? I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Where it keeps following her around.
She absolutely hates the whole thing.
It's perfect.
And that's
it comes across and it's perfect. Like, it's funny because you come across as the child and her the adult trying to, get you to like get back to work or take things seriously or whatever, and it looks fun. Yeah.
And that's 100% our relationship.
Yeah.
There's no question. That is it in a nutshell. And she gets so aggravated at me, but she was at a trade show in Houston, and somebody came up and she's like, Flexline, 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 where do I know you from? And she's like, oh, well, this, and oh, well, that. Oh, well, he comes back like the next day and said, TheConveyorCougar, I know you because the TheConveyorCougar posts about you. And she's just like, oh, I don't even want to go home and tell my mom this. So
well, she's gonna hate.
It's taken on a life of its own, and it's just bonus points for me because she hates it so much.
Love it.
Yeah, well, not to throw gas on the fire, but when they were pitching having you on as a guest, Daniel brought it up first, and I'm like, who's Cathy? And he's like, oh, the TheConveyorCougar. I'm like, oh, yeah, she's great.
Yeah, well, Lauren's definitely going to watch this. I'm going to make sure she sees this.
Nice.
Well, I was telling my wife about you once, and I called you the conveyor cougar, and the look I got from her from across the room, it was like, hey, this is a self-given name. I didn't assign that name to her. Like, calm down. Like, it's not my pet name for her. That's her official name. Like,
Well,
relax.
I mean, I feel like if I was a little younger, maybe it'd be creepy, but I mean, I kind of feel like at this age, if people can't see the humor in it, really, I mean, and I am just all about it. People wanted merch, so we have hats now. We have these T-shirts that have Cougar Club on them and whatever. And I go in, and Lauren's in. She's designing a logo and everything, and I have to laugh because she was just so anti all of it. And she'll be like, "Mom, have you not made a TikTok? Can you go make me a TikTok about this? I need to send something to a customer and I need something like this." And so she's finally on board with it, which has taken some of the fun out of it for me, honestly. But
Oh, it just feels like a job. It used to be fun. Now it's like a chore.
right.
You can't argue with results, though. I mean, she's got to be seeing the fruits of these efforts, and
Well,
you've
it's
certainly got a name
crazy.
out there.
The first, like, I would say the first 2 or 3 months after I started the TikTok, our web traffic went up 300%,
Nice.
which
Wow.
which was crazy because if you go on TikTok and you follow me, I only have like 1,200 followers or 1,300 followers. I mean, I don't have like a million or what these TikTok like influencers, but I mean, I feel like I have a good solid base of people that actually look at my content, and that are interested in seeing application based content really. And um it's kind of the same with LinkedIn. I don't have a million followers, but I feel like, I have a good core group that appreciates the kind of content that I'm trying to put out. And to me, I think that's more valuable than, having a huge quantity.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
totally agree.
you shouldn't belittle having 1,200 followers on a platform when you're posting about manufacturing stuff. It's not like you're not out there posting the most viral clips. It's not, most of them aren't like you and Lauren doing the latest dance trend or whatever. You're posting manufacturing stuff,
Well,
conveyor related
really
stuff.
though, I do try to stay somewhat on trend with that because, I don't know if you guys watched, they had I guess it was like a year or so ago, Wednesday Addams was really big, and there was this whole viral thing of the Wednesday dance. And so I actually programmed a robot to do the Wednesday dance. And
Yeah.
so,
Yes,
you
good.
know, yeah, I try to kind of bring it together like that, but I think the main point is, you've got to have some fun and enjoy what you do. And I think, Dan, you gave me the biggest compliment I think I've ever gotten when you sent me this message because you were like, hey, you know, you don't really know me, but I feel like I know you. And that, I mean, I really took that as a huge compliment because I really feel like authenticity is important in social media. And I get a lot of people who are like, well, you sure some of these posts are LinkedIn? Are Lauren especially, Mom, you want to post this on LinkedIn? I'm like, yeah, because if I'm having issues or something, you guys get it because you're in an industry very similar. You understand what's on my plate. Like, I have an understanding of what's on your plate. So if you're having a challenge and you need support, who better to turn to than people that really do know what you're up against and know what a day in your life really looks like. I feel like I get more support, more emotional support from LinkedIn than I do Facebook because my family and my friends, they have no clue. It's like that meme, like this is what my family thinks I do. This is what I really do.
Yeah.
It's like that, and so they have no idea. So I think social media for me has been really important, um, to show that authentic side and let other people that are coming into the industry know that, yeah, I'm the president of a company, but I still have, cows out, or I still have, I have a lot of issues. We have a lot of things in common. I'm dealing with my mom in a nursing home right now. I
I was gonna
post
say
about
you have
that.
a mother who doesn't understand that, right?
Right. And there are a lot of people in my age group that having similar issues. And I think just knowing that you've got people in your industry that are facing the same kind of challenges. I've had people reach out to me in private message, and it's just been so valuable. And I think we should definitely have a social media footprint, a big one, because I think it really has enriched my life. It makes my job easier. And I was at Automate, and I had this gal come up to me, and she said, I just wanted to come over and tell you thank you. I appreciate your posts. It's empowering for me. And I was just like, wow, I don't understand how or why, but you're welcome. you know
Yeah.
And so if one person can look at something that I'm doing or I've done and get a little bit of inspiration, or get what they need to get through that day, I feel like I've accomplished something.
Yeah, that feeling of you're not alone, right? When you find out that it takes whatever anxiety, stress, depression you're going through, it kind of gives you that, okay, I'm not the only one
Right?
going through this right now.
Yeah, and
It
then when
takes a
you have
certain
people in our industry, it's really special because they're getting you from where you are,
Yeah.
you know.
It takes a certain level of vulnerability to put yourself out there and put that information out there. But it's incredible the relationships that can be made, like you alluded to. I mean, that's how the three of us met. We didn't know each other from Adam, probably turn of the year, and we talk every day now. And
Right.
we're all in such similar phases of life, young kids, working in manufacturing. So those relationships are so valuable, and they're there to be had. I think the other part of it is when a prospective client needs to make a buying decision, that familiarity is there. They feel like they know the person. They want to buy from the person. They want to buy from the conveyor cougar,
Right.
not Flexline, right?
And that's an excellent point. And it's one thing that I tried to explain to the marketing firm that we were working with. I'm like, people buy from people. People don't buy
Yeah.
from businesses. The Flexline business page is nice. It's great, but you know, I think that especially nowadays, when reality TV is like all of the buzz and everything, people want that rawness of reality. We were spending a fortune on these really professionally made videos, and it's like, I can take the crappiest video shot on my cell phone and get a whole lot more views and a whole lot more interactions or reactions than with some of the stuff that we paid thousands of dollars to have produced.
Yeah, sure.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
You're
talking
your
with
own best
Elias about that
mouthpiece.
earlier today. Like, I buy my stencils, from Elias and his company. And one of the big reasons why is because I can call him up and talk to him. He can actually walk me through the strategy, educate me on the manufacturing process, what challenges, if I'm just like, why can't you just do this or whatever, like make me this shape, and it's just he's able to talk me through and explain it, and it's a personal touch rather than just some huge conglomerate
Right.
or sole entity
Yeah.
that I'm just a standard, especially the volume we buy at, we're not going to get to the front of the queue with most people, so to get personal attention when you have an issue, or when you just really need something expedited and you get an answer quickly or whatever. I mean, it's working with the person, and this whole, like, keeping LinkedIn a 100% purely professional platform. Like, I understand the sentiment behind that, but for the reasons you expressed, like, I don't think that's practical. Like, if we're all representing ourselves and our businesses on these social media platforms, right? And even if it's enjoyable sometimes or whatever, like, none of us are doing it 100% just strictly for the fun of it. I mean, there's, it's not just purely benevolent and altruistic. There's obviously, goals attached to it. So, people need to know who you are. I think attaching some humanity to your page and not just being uh, just straight business all day, every day, gives people a sense of who you are, and that makes them feel more comfortable working with you, I would think.
And for me,
Absolutely. And you make a really great point. Having a personal relationship, I think, is a value added. The fact that you can make a call and somebody's going to pick your call up and it's not going to go through an automated, phone line. I mean, I hate that.
yeah,
Well,
I always tell everybody, a lot of people can go direct to our manufacturers, but it's like a big layer cake, right? And you've got all of these fancy layers and you've got all of this thick icing in between all of these layers. Flexline is not a layer cake. Flexline is that cake that your grandma made you for your birthday that, you eat right out of the pan, right? It is one layer of cake and it's the same cake all the way across the pan. No matter where you take the bite, it's always going to taste the same. You don't have all of the fluff. You don't have all of the layers of crap to cut through to get to what you need. And I think that that's a value add. And that's how I like to present Flexline because what really is Flexline? Flexline is an extension of me. It's an extension of my family, our values. Um, Flexline isn't a living, breathing entity in and of itself. I mean, it's the sum of the people inside of it, and I think that that's really important. And I think a lot of businesses lose sight of that, and they want you to believe that this entity is, something special. And I'm just the one saying, hey, we're just a bunch of people that come together and work every day, and we laugh and we have a good time. And most of the time, everything goes great. Once in a while, we screw something up and we have to fix it, and, we have to recover. But that's just people, and that's just how it is. And I think people need to understand that and have that value, as you say, pick up the phone, you be able to talk to somebody. That just really is more important than, do I get this price point? And I think that we are coming around to that. Actually, I'm seeing some shifts. Um, Companies aren't as price driven as they once were. I think they're starting, especially after COVID, when we had all of the supply chain issues and all of that. I think they're starting to see some value in forming
terrible terrible service is a really good driver for price for other people. When somebody else has had an absolutely horrible experience where they were getting a cheaper price, if they feel comfortable and safe with you, the price suddenly becomes an easier thing to live with.
Right.
Like we were talking when you first got on some about the reshoring efforts that are major to our industry with PCB manufacturing and assembly, and that's where, we can't be competitive when it comes to price with all of the offshore options. We just can't. So the only place we can really shine that they just simply can't is the support and the relationship. Because,
Right.
Our first guest that we had on, Alex, was talking about when you get bad boards from China, they never go back. You're just stuck with them. They're
I
not going to
saw that.
replace them for you. They're not going to, you're just stuck with it. And but we would never do that to somebody, if there's a
Yeah.
mistake, we're going to make it right, like I just can't imagine just volume shooting, like you just, you know, keep putting out boards, and if they go bad, whatever, you just move on to the next customer and forget the one that went bad. Like that's just a wild way of doing business, and
And I think that was a more acceptable way before, but I do think that is changing, and I think it's up to us to deliver that message. You know, definitely, that's what I'm trying to do. FlexLine's not always the cheapest. Some of our vendors will undercut us in a heartbeat, but you can call on Labor Day. All the phones go routed to our cell phones. So if somebody has an issue and they need to talk to somebody, guess what? We still answer the phone on a holiday. I chartered an airplane and flew a gear reducer to Nebraska for a customer who was down. Wow. You don't get that level of personal customer service from China. Right. You just right. don't. And I think that the whole maybe the word is like boutique experience is becoming very popular. And I think that's what we're delivering. It's what you guys are delivering. It's what I'm delivering. I mean, we're very similar in that, and that we are really trying to build this niche and understand the value that we bring to the table.
Well, like you, Cathy, and much against what these guys might say, I'm not just a pretty mouthpiece. So I will, be able to take, if somebody gives us work, then I'm the one who actually sets it up. I create the programs for our machines and, cradle that project like my little baby that I'm trying to nurse to health, like,
right.
And everyone here plays an integral role in their company, like
right.
we're all, extremely involved in a lot of different aspects of our work here. So, we're not just representing
not
outside,
just the
we all live and breathe it,
Yes.
And I think, Cathy, what you were describing, like with your family all working at the same place, I mean, that's what America was when I was growing up. It was before all this big business took over and everybody worked for these giant conglomerates. I mean, you had the big three in Detroit, but for the most part, now it seems like all the little guys are getting bought out by the big corporations, and I think the younger generation sees these huge corporations and they don't realize that, hey, you could talk to somebody on the phone. Sometimes I ask a question and like I could Google it, right? But I grew up in a time where you asked questions. You could just call someone and say, hey, what do you think about this, right? There's a level to that of learning for me in communication that's just human. And I feel like that's getting lost kind of with the youth of today. Of there's a different way to go about it. And I just love your story of the family all works together. It's like everybody used to be on a farm, right? Or they all worked for grandpa's grocery store or their restaurant or whatever. And now it's, oh, they're leaving to go off to college in California or they're going to New York or somewhere, and then they just get wrapped up in this rat race world that I want no part of. I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah, I think that's why I like I like working with small and mid-sized manufacturers. That's why I really like going out and trying to reach out to the people that are overlooked and underserved. And they're just a lot of small rural companies that need what we can deliver, what I can deliver, what you guys can deliver, and it's reaching them and letting them know you're there. And I think, interestingly, I've worked with some Gen Zs and they get a really bad rap. And we had a few at the office that it's like having puppies in the office, and it's just been wonderful for me. But surprisingly, it's those guys that are the ones that want to pick up the phone and actually have a conversation. I think they're bringing that back around. And I think they are seeing the value in relationships and in a smaller scales and not the big grandiose, oh, I want to go and I want to work for this massive corporation. I think they appreciate somebody that recognizes them and knows their name and knows their family or knows about their family. And I think those values are still really important values that the younger generation they have. They just need to be nurtured.
Cheers started playing in my head while you were saying that. Where everybody, right?
Right?
Uh, Kathy, I got a question for you. You've had to work on some pretty cool projects. Is there one that stands out to you, like one that was your all-time favorite, fun to do?
Well, have a lot of really fun projects. We've been so fortunate. We have systems installed all across the United States, Canada, Mexico, and Puerto Rico. The farthest installation we did was an installation in Israel. We did a project for John Deere for cotton picker fingers. And I didn't go on the installation, but my husband did. And I was pretty nervous, him traveling to Israel. And of course, this was a few years ago. So it was before all of the situation that's taking place there now, but it was still pretty sketchy. Um, because he packed his own suitcase and so he had left for the airport and for some reason I ended up looking at the State Department website and they were like, oh well, Americans traveling there should wear no logo tees or anything, and I'm like, oh my God, he's got nothing but a suitcase full of Harley shirts. I know him. And so I was so nervous, but it ended up being like one of the best installations that he has ever done in his career. And even though they had to drive through a Palestinian protest on the way from the airport, which they didn't tell me until they were back home.
Wow.
Um,
Smart.
yeah, right. Because I was already pretty nervous about it. But, I mean, I've been so fortunate to be able to travel the world with my business. And the ironic thing is, if you go uptown into Chester, Illinois, and you're like, oh, FlexLine, people in my own hometown will be like, I don't know what they do. I have no idea. But I can be in the airport in Denmark and walk by and see somebody I know, right? So it's really crazy. Um, but we've done some really great pharmaceutical projects. We've done a lot of work in automotive. I did a very large paper project for a company that made check folios. So, the things that you order your checks in, um, those those are traveling on one of our systems. The most exciting thing to me is if I go to the grocery store or if I go to Walmart or Target, or I was even in the doctor's office the other day and I'm like, oh, those handy wipes. Guess what? I know all about them. I've been to that plant. So it's fun for me to go out and be like, oh, that, yeah. And so we just hired a new gal in customer service. And so the phone rang and she was talking to him and she hung up and she was just like starstruck and she's like, I was just talking. I see them at the, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. And that's the really cool thing. That's the thing that I think I'm the most proud of, is knowing that, we play some small part in that. And during the whole COVID and the supply chain issues and all of that stuff, I was especially proud to be supporting manufacturing, because if it weren't for manufacturing, just imagine how much worse things would have been.
Right.
I do a lot of work in the toilet paper plants, and I'm telling all of people here, like, stop buying it. It's still being made. Stop. Relax. So it's not so much as one particular project. I think it's just the pride that I have. We've got like shelves that have all of the sample product that we run from all of the companies over the years that we've done business with. And I have a lot of pride when I look at that, because, these are these are all well-known brands that we all use and love. And just the small role that we have in making that happen is just something that I'm humbled by, really.
That resonates with me. I've felt that way also, looking at consumer electronics or the garage door opener in my house, or even defense and military applications, and just to know like my product was used for that. It had like you said, a small part in the building or success or failure of it, and the stakes are higher than others sometimes, but
Right.
yeah, it does kind of give you a warm fuzzy to know that this stuff is used for important items and things that I'm using every day, or my family's using, or friends are using, and there's something to that, and it makes you
Yeah,
care a little bit more.
it does, and it's just something that I'm really proud of, and I'm proud of my team because, I mean, I honestly couldn't do any of it without them. And so we're a package deal, and I am extremely proud of them and the effort that they put forth on every project. And, it sounds cliche, but, we've always wanted like every customer to feel like they were our only customer because we want to give that level of service and that attention to detail. And that's something that's been important to me. And I think it's a value that I bring to work with me every day when I go, and my team has picked up on. And, I'm just really proud when I get a customer that says, "Hey, thank you." We did an automation fair. I don't know if you guys saw a few weeks ago. I guess it was like middle of August. It occurred to me that a lot of small and mid-sized manufacturing just don't have the resources to send teams to big trade shows in Chicago or Vegas or Orlando. And so we thought that, it would be a great idea to invite some of our vendor partners and bring a trade show to the small and mid-sized rural manufacturing in the area. So we sent out invitations to all of these companies within like 150-mile radius.
And you had like
And
100 show up, right?
yeah, we
Like,
did. We had over a
Wow.
100,
And where
yeah,
was that
I
at?
which
I
I
saw
thought
that.
was phenomenal. But the part that really got me was this one company from maybe 30 miles away. They sent maybe 10 or 12 people over, and they looked at me and they said, "Thank you. Thank you for inviting us over and for letting us see this." And I thought, how sad is that, right? That they have to get their inspiration from a chemical Google.
Are some of
So
them considered competitors with you? I mean, was
um,
that part of it that
some of our vendors that we invited, sure, but really, competitor is such an outdated term. Y- you
sure,
know, I mean, I see early in my career, I might have seen them as competitors, but now I see everything as a potential collaboration. And so we invited people that yeah, may they take one of our projects? Sure they might, but but I thought they had services that these manufacturers might be interested in. So, I mean, we don't do a lot of cobot welding, but you know what? We know some guys that do. And so if I get a cobot welding project, am I going to like tell my team we've got to figure this out? No, I'm going to be like, "Hey, let's call these guys. Let's bring them in. Let's collaborate." And then the customer gets the best possible project because they have an expert doing it. They're not having me who's just trying to figure it out, on my own. So I think it's really important to collaborate. And so I don't look at anybody really as competitors anymore. And maybe that's the wrong way or the right way to look at it. I really don't know. It's just that I'm at that stage in my career where it's like I'm not going to fight for business necessarily. I want to pick and choose who I want to work with at this point because trust me, there are just some customers you can't afford to have or you don't really want. And I'm sure you guys have them and you know exactly what I'm talking about. So,
of
you
course.
know, yeah, right?
And
It's like, no, no, no. But it was important to me, really. I felt like it was a service because it, I just I hate the idea that these guys they never get to leave their plant, right? And they're trying to come up with all of these ideas based on stuff they see in catalogs or what they see in Google. And I'm a very tactile person. I want to be able to touch something and play with it and put it together and see how it works. And that's why I think I really like to go to a trade show where there's something there that you can touch and actually get an idea. And these guys don't have that opportunity. And I mean that really resonated with me. And so it was important to me to be able to bring a group together that I thought would provide value to these manufacturers. And I think it did. And I'm really excited to start working on an even bigger event for next year because I think the need is really there. And there was just so much gratitude. And in my line of work, you don't get gratitude every single day. So when you get a little bit, you got to just like roll in it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times it's kind of the no news is good news, right? You're hearing about the problems. So if you're not hearing about it, it's typically a good thing, right? Like
Yes. Yes.
So I watched your and Lauren's appearance on Automation Ladies podcast. I mentioned that to you, but one of the things that I really took from that, you've touched on the family dynamic and everything. I think a lot of people might hear that and just assume it's all fun and roses and whatever, and that maybe Lauren might have been somewhat of like a nepotism hire, but based on, yeah, based on the way you guys described that, what it was like when you first brought her into the company or brought her back after her time away. You certainly made her pay her dues, like different than the prodigal daughter, I guess. But yeah.
I did. Actually, I did not want to hire her back. And honestly, and the reasoning was this, I really wanted her to go out and work for another company so that when she did come back, she would have an appreciation of what our business offered. And I thought that was really important. And but she went to her dad, and her dad, typical kid, right? Mom says no, so I'm going to go to dad. Yeah, and so she went to dad, and dad let her come back. But I mean, she had a pretty tough row to hoe. I'm not going to lie. I mean, she has definitely had to earn her way. If anything, it's like the opposite of nepotism. It's like the
Right.
worst case scenario. It's like, you don't want to be my daughter and work here. and so she did have to earn her way. And I have to say, I am incredibly proud of her because she is slaying it. She really is. I mean, I look at her and I see that younger version of myself. And I told her that the other day, and she was like, Mom, will you stop saying stuff like that? I find that incredibly uncomfortable.
The fact that you just said slaying it,
You brought up the collaboration a little bit ago, and that was another thing that was touched on that podcast was, and that's one of the things I've heard the automation ladies bring up a lot is the idea of collaboration that, we don't need to look at each other as competitors. And there's always like, that's something Sean and I have been learning. Like we're in the exact same industry. We both do assembly. We both run the same equipment even, but we learn so much from each other. The people that we're all connected with together on LinkedIn, we learn together as a whole. Every time I post something that's process driven, I learn from my own post because of the comments it generates and the discussion that happens in that post. And, there's so much group learning and there's no one who knows it all. So why wouldn't you work together and everyone play off of each other, get your weakness covered up by somebody else's strength, right? Work together.
I think one of the things that I've realized over my career, it's not so much now what it's how do you use your resources? How well do you utilize your resources? And I see people that used to be competitors, I see them still really as resources. And, you know, I think going forward, I mean, it's made my life a lot easier because I have a lot less anxiety about things, you know. It's a happier way to look at life. But it's also really worked out for us. You know, I mean, I threw out the whole cobot welding thing, but there are other people that have specialties in certain things, and there's certain things that they do and they do really well. And it's like, you know, I like to know them and be able to learn from them and have them come over and work on a project with us. And I think it's great for everybody, you know, but the bottom line is it brings a better product to the customer. And at the end of the day, isn't that what it's really about? You know, I mean, sure, we want to sell our product, but we want to be known for having a good product. For, you know, we want to have that sense of pride, you know, when we walk into whatever store and see. So I think using your resources is probably the most critical business skill that you can have in today's day and age. You know, you can't possibly know everything. I mean, I think I started out with, you know, 3/4 of what I have known in my 40 years is now obsolete. You know, so it's like if you're not learning something new every day, and if you're not making those having those relationships with people that you can learn from, you know, you're losing relevance.
Sure. And we talked early on about, you know, what was our reasoning for starting this podcast, and I think collaboration and what we've just been speaking about is such a big part of that. We started having these conversations amongst each other, and then maybe with another outside person, depending on what the actual challenge or problem was. And we thought maybe other people want to know this. Maybe other people would be interested in this, and who else can we talk to, and kind of chronologue these conversations. And it's really interesting to be able to speak to people not only in our direct industry, but folks like yourself. And so many of these concepts and these values go above and through every single industry.
Right.
So yeah, kind of
Well,
to circle back.
For sure.
Yeah. So Cathy, 10 years ago, I could never imagine, like, I watched it. I don't know why, but I kept watching it. It was the clip of the pallet jack where it was automated that you guys are selling, where literally lifts you up, transports you all the way across the other building, goes into a little cubby, and then drops down, right?
Right.
10 years ago, I could never even dream that was a possibility, right?
Yep.
Where do you see, you know, automation, conveyors going in the next 10 years from now? Could you have imagined what you were doing the other day?
No, I couldn't. And I'll tell you, I know AI is a lot, there's a lot of hype associated with that, but I am super excited. I was at Automate and I saw one of the first, what is being marketed as a cognitive robot. And by a cognitive robot, that means that it sees, it hears, and of course it feels. I mean, as most collaborative robots do, you know, they can sense proximity and touch. But there was a company by the name of Robotics, and they had a display there, and they had this robot, and you spoke to it like you would talk to Alexa or Siri. She had vision built into the arm. And what was happening was that they were giving her voice commands. She was actually carrying those commands out, writing her own code. And I thought it was just amazing to me. So one of the biggest drawbacks to automation, especially robotics, for a lot of small and mid-sized manufacturers is they don't have anybody on staff that can do robotic programming, basic things like that. So the thought of having a robot that you could speak to, like you were speaking to Alexa, and have her writing her own code, to me, it was just mind-blowing. Because imagine, the operator could be on the line and be telling, the robot what to pick, or, making those changes verbally. And I was just blown away at the thought of it. And I mean, I think that a lot of robot companies are going to be coming out with this kind of technology pretty soon. It's not going to be, FANUC has their robotic language and this and this and this. It's going to be like, there's going to be a universal language, but most of it's going to be, where you just speak to the robot and the robot's going to write its own code. And it's going to, never replace the need to have somebody that can actually program a robot, but it's amazing to me. I had a KUKA robot on the floor, a palletizing robot, and I had Chat GPT write a palletizing program for me for that KUKA robot, and it took about 3 seconds. Now, did you need to go in and touch up some of the points? Of course, because I'm not that great at prompting Chat GPT, but I really think AI is going to bring automation to a level that's going to make it much more user-friendly, and it's going to make it much more attainable for small and mid-sized manufacturing who don't have the staff to support it in its traditional sense.
As you were talking, you brought up a lot of like I started writing down questions, and then you started answering the questions I was writing down.
Sorry.
But no, it's perfect. Like I still like when you started talking about programming, it just like that's a lot of what I do, and so I instantly started to wonder, when you sell projects, like how much of the initial programming for something do you do? How much involvement do you have, or is it you just sell the hardware and equipment and it is on them? They need their own trained staff who already know how to deal with this. And I've got a bunch more, but I'll wait.
No, we do all the initial programming, but as Sean was saying, especially with the AMRs or the AGVs, you really have to have somebody on your staff that can work with them if there's issues, because, or, you have a product change or something on a line, and, you don't want to have to call us in to come and reprogram the robot. You really need somebody there that understands basic code so that they can troubleshoot if there's an issue. They're on site, of course, we're not. So I think that's a deterrent for a lot of companies, because they just don't have somebody that they think can, fulfill that role. We do a lot of the initial programming. We do send, the team out to do program changes, but it's really not cost effective to have to do that.
Right.
And so that's one of the reasons why your smaller size companies just really don't feel like they can get into a robot.
So it's not exclusively the initial investment. It's the kind of after.
It's it's the ongoing, right? Because you're inevitably going to want to make changes. I mean, your production needs change. I mean, if they're not, you're doing it wrong. Really.
Yeah.
So, having the ability to maintain a device, I mean, we all have computers, we all have our cell phones. I mean, if you had to take that to somebody every time you wanted to add an app to your phone, could you imagine?
Yeah, sure.
How that would be? So, I mean, and it's the same with the robot. I think, to feel comfortable in actually having robots and having them part of the process, you have to have that comfort level of being able to maintain and make those changes in-house. I mean, I couldn't imagine if I had to take my cell phone out every time I wanted to make a change to it and have somebody else do that for me. And I think that we all perceive devices as being like our cell phone or our our Roomba, or I mean, you want to have control over it and feel like you have control over it. And I think that's what this new level of AI is going to bring to automation. It's going to make it so that you or I, with no experience, can go out and talk a robot through a simple task, and the robot will write its own program and be able to carry out that task based on the instruction that we give it. And I think it's really going to revolutionize manufacturing. I really do.
That's so crazy to even think of. That's so wild.
It's crazy amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
So do all the robots have do the different brands then have different languages, and
Yes.
are they different than PLCs? Like, is it totally different than ladder logic and the languages used to program PLC? Is there any crossover? Is it
A lot of it is proprietary. A lot of it is based on Python. So there's some crossover. There are some methods of translating, some software that can translate different robots programming from, one to another. But I really think going forward that's probably going to go by the wayside, and it's going to become more user friendly, more tactile, more touch move, and less, like you say, ladder logic, when you really had to know what you were doing. It's going to move, I think, away from that on on the user interface side. I mean, there's always going to be the coding on the other side,
Sure.
that's going to make that happen. But on the user interface side, I think it's going to be much more intuitive.
Yep.
And it's just going to make it a lot easier for anyone to be able to incorporate automation in their process.
I think everybody wins in that circumstance, right? Because it all of a sudden becomes more accessible to masses of companies that
Yeah.
aren't utilizing the technology now. So it's great for those companies, and it's also great for those companies that are producing these robots, because all of a
Right.
sudden their potential client base just 10x.
Well, and it's also really great for operators. Um, I really, one of the other things that I'm kind of excited about, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with the digital twin, where they go out and they scan the plant. Well, one of the things that I've found in my career are that the operators are usually like the last person to know, right? And they get this automation inflicted upon them,
Yeah, sure.
and what I really like to do is try to have them more in the process. And what Digital Twin allows is that operator to step into the future of what a cell is going to look like and be able to give you the input of, well, if you could just move that 6 inches this way, or if you could do this. And so then they're going to buy into it, because one of the biggest things we're faced with is, oh, automation takes our jobs, automation does this,
Right.
that's constantly kind of what we face, but that's really not true, because what automation does is make jobs better. And everybody is struggling to find labor. And when you do get labor, wow, it'd be nice to be able to give them positions that are going to be rewarding. I mean, I personally think that it's terrible that we spend more time thinking about the enclosures and enrichment of zoo animals than we do for the people that work in our plants, 8 to 12 hours a day. So, to be able to make their jobs better, and to get them to be more a part of the process and get more ownership, they take more ownership in it, I think is beneficial all the way around as well. And of course, they're going to have more ownership in something that they can manipulate and operate. And I mean, I just think it is, as you say, it's going to be an improvement for everyone, for all aspects.
Yeah, like Daniel and I use these things called selective solders. They're basically robotic solders. And I don't know about Daniel, but it seems like every one that I buy, I have to hire two or three more people in that department to keep it running. Like it's expanded the workforce. It hasn't,
Right.
even though it's doing a task that the other people are doing, there's still up the follow-up human touch before and after the process is robotically soldered. It's it's definitely not removing jobs.
No, it's enhancing, I think. I mean, it's my goal to make jobs better. As I say, I've done the really crappy stuff. I've done boxes all day long. I mean, I've done a lot of these dull, dirty, disgusting tasks that I wouldn't want to do day in and day out for, a day, let alone, 40 hours a week,
Years.
2 weeks a year. I mean, I just couldn't imagine it. But, I mean, I think using the technology going forward to bring the operators into the process is going to allay some of that fear. And it's going to get them to really understand how improving manufacturing improves their lives as well. Because, the more profitable you can be, the better product that you can turn out is just beneficial to the whole company. I mean, it affects everybody. If you're having, problems with boards, it isn't just you as the CEO that is going to take that hit. I mean, everybody's going to suffer if things are not going as they should. So I think it's important for everybody in the company to have that sense of ownership. And I think going forward, that's going to be attainable.
Yeah, and the operator is not an idiot. They're usually not.
No.
They're usually smart. They just don't know. They don't have a master's degree in coding or something like that, but they know what they want it to do, but they just don't know how to
Right.
read the code to do it.
Yes.
Who better than an
And
operator to know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And as I say, and a lot of times they're overlooked. Engineering doesn't really spend the time with the operators to understand what they could do to make their job easier, and maybe don't spend the time to listen to the input that they have, because they're engineering, right?
Right. Right.
And I think that's a resource that's definitely underutilized, because these are the guys that are out there on the front line doing this job every day, and they have some valuable information and some valuable input. And I think they definitely need to be a part of the process, a bigger part of the process. So
That's
that's
exciting.
what we like to do.
That's exciting.
Like you say, you get much quicker and more genuine buy-in from them if they're included. I mean, if they
Absolutely.
feel heard and like they have a voice in that transition, it's probably going to be a lot more of a receptive attitude towards it than,
Yes.
if, like you said, it's just being forced upon them. And
Yeah.
I think also another thing is like just the dynamic you were talking about of, um, I don't remember exactly the comment that made me think of it, but we're talking about at one point kind of rolling up your sleeves and doing any job and having done every kind of job in the company along the way and things like that. I I used to work in the construction industry and had a painting business, and you know, the company I owned when I first started working there, my first day at that company was the first time I'd ever picked up a painting brush. So I took every single step along the way, to eventually owning the company and running it. And when I took over as the owner, I made sure that, when we would be doing the worst, dirtiest, messiest, most, considered the lowliest jobs that we had, I'd be right there alongside them, wearing the, you know, dirty, scrappy clothes to go stain a bunch of cabinets and, come out looking like we'd spend a day in the coal mines. And it's just, if you fight it alongside your crew, and you're in the same struggle they're in, it almost doesn't matter what you're asking of them. You're going to have a lot more buy-in, and
Right.
um, so no matter what you're doing, if they see that you're taking their needs and wants into consideration, and you're not just kind of doing it your way, like it or not, and just walking all over them, that kind of approach, I think, definitely elicits a much better response and a better partnership working together.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and we need each other. That's the thing. I mean, every every team member is valuable. I mean, everybody in every piece to the puzzle is important. You don't get the whole picture if there's a piece missing. So, everybody's contribution is valuable. And I think that that is especially important in manufacturing, especially as we struggle to fill those roles. I think trying to revamp the way we look at manufacturing positions is really important. And I know there are a lot of people out there that are trying to bring attention to that. You mentioned the automation ladies. They talk about that a lot too, about how, we need to really redefine how we look at those roles and how we can fill them, because we need to make them more attractive. And I think, newer generations, younger generations aren't like our grandfathers. They're not going to just go clock in and put their time in. I mean,
Right.
they are
Yep.
wanting something in return other than just the paycheck. And we're going to have to meet that need if we want to fill those positions.
Uh, do you know Andrew Crow? Drew
Yeah, I
Crow
do.
from, yeah. Yeah, he's who I think of when you talk about, changing the nature, redefining the role or the mold. Like, he's kind of just straight up breaking all the molds when it comes to your typical approach to manufacturing. And I think it's the reason why he gets such a good, you know, one of the reasons why people respond to him so much is just that energy and passion, and just trying a different approach than, has always been tried in the past, for sure. Just redefining it.
Yeah, well, and I think that that's important. As I said, in our business, I knew we had to rebrand. We needed, to take a fresh look at what we were doing and how we were doing it, and things needed to change. And I think that all business has to evolve in that way. You can't do something the same way for 40 years and expect that you're going to be able to continue to do it for another 40 years. I
Right.
mean, you have to evolve. Things change, people change, the way we think about things changes, and you have to take all of that into consideration. And I think that that's really important work, and it's also kind of something that we try to do at Flexline. I mean, Lauren and I have tried to take a more active role in working with like schools and introducing kids to some of the different options that are available. We have the third largest private label food manufacturer in the U.S. in our town, and so when people think of manufacturing, everybody in our town thinks of this particular plant. And it's like, no, there's a lot of variation. There's a lot of different things out there, and the thing is, these kids aren't exposed to any of it. And so I think that we all, as business owners, have a responsibility to try to expose kids to all of the different positions that are available, like not only within my organization, but in it takes more than just engineers. It takes, there there's so many people that have to come together to make things happen. And there's roles for everyone, and there's a lot of room at the table. But these kids don't even realize where the table is. I mean, nobody has shown them. They have had no exposure. And I mean, it's 2024, and and the teacher at a local school, we were over getting some interns, and the teacher looks at Lauren and Lauren said, well, we'd like to have an accounting intern too. And she said, that's good because we had some girls and we weren't sure what we were going to do with them. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Seriously? It's 2024. The girls need to come over and be our accounting interns, because clearly girls can't program robots or do any of those things. So, there's still a lot of misinformation out there. And it's amazing to me when the kids come and they tour our facility and they're just like, wow, we didn't even know that anybody did this, let alone that it was right here. And so, I think we as an industry have a big job ahead of us trying to attract people into manufacturing because they just don't know how cool we are. They really don't.
Well, obviously, speaking of exposure and how cool you are, what was it like how did you get approached to do Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid? Like, what on earth was that experience like? Sean knows a little bit. He's turned into a recent celebrity. He's had a film crew around him recently, so he knows what it's like, but the rest of us want to know.
I thought the question was actually directed towards me when you started off.
Well, interestingly enough, we were approached by them because of TikTok. Surprise. Because of the social media presence. And actually, they had sent me an email and I ignored it. They called, and my receptionist at that time blew them off because she thought it was just, crazy stupid, because why
That's how you really get them.
Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid wanted to be talking to anybody at FlexLine Automation. And so we really didn't take it seriously. And finally, like after the third time they called, Lauren was like, just put them through. I will talk to him. I'll just blow him off once and for all, and we'll be done with it. And so that's really the truth about how that happened. It was like, I still don't understand why or how. And I don't even know. But then we ended up doing
fun?
TV shows. Actually, it was extremely stressful.
I imagine so.
And the reason it was so stressful was because it is like all lighting, and you keep the glare of my glasses. That was like a big thing with them, and then it ended up they would be like, well, turn your head like this, and then turn your head like this. And so then they'd be asking me questions, and I'm like,
but look natural though.
And so I felt so uncomfortable because they were like all worried about that kind of thing. And so I couldn't just like sit down and answer their questions and talk because I was like, I'm afraid I'm going to move my head and my glasses are going to glare. And then, they would come over and pat, so it was very stressful. I don't know about you, Sean. Did you have like issues with like them being super worried about that kind of thing?
I told them no makeup from the get-go. I said, not cutting it for that. And although he didn't offer, so I feel kind of gypped out on that experience. But no, my guy was super cool. He filmed at we have a pretty large city of a couple 100,000 people, but we have this giant maybe 3-mile park, just huge water park, and a big pavilion, farmers market, and volleyball, blah blah blah. And so we started off filming me and my wife and my kid going to the farmer's market. So like calm my nerves. And then Friday was at the shop. This is my home base. I know what I'm doing here. And then Saturday was all day at my house. It was stressful in the sense that I wasn't on set. It was stressful that everything in my life needed to look like it was clean, right? And
yeah, there is that, right? It's like,
I got an 8-week-old newborn and a toddler. This is not clean.
Nothing's clean.
No, nothing
If
is
I panned
clean.
around my basement right now, you'd be like, okay, that makes sense, right? It's just full of kids' toys everywhere, and yeah, it was. So that part was stressful, but the actual, it was weird because we were doing our last interview on Saturday, and I was sitting across from him, and I said, Carl, I feel like I'm talking to a friend right now. Like it didn't feel like it was this interview anymore. It just felt like it was extremely stressful for my wife and I, but it was weird. He had a good way about him, and then the people he brought with him were fantastic too. So they really put me at ease, and he did have the lighting thing going on, but I just kind of rolled with it.
Yeah, it was. They did send us like some questions ahead of time, but they didn't want you to script an answer, and so it was like, I don't know. But it was fun, and um it was fun to see the finished product. So it was exciting, but I don't know. I mean, I'm used to being on camera because usually I'm the ham in all of our videos. I'm the one that is doing the silly things. So that part of it was just so uncomfortable because it's like the whole lighting and the this and there's a glare from your hair and
Right.
I'm like I don't even know.
It was
So
it was nice though whenever my wife was really stressful, and I have a good disassociation. I'm really good at that in stressful moments. So anytime my wife was like freaking out about something, I'd be like, "That's showbiz, baby." I'd
yeah,
freak
right.
He hated it every
Which
time,
she
just like how
really
you guys were born.
appreciated.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
she
doing it
loved that.
all week long. Showbiz, baby.
Yeah, I know I couldn't be like on one of those where they followed you around with the camera like 24/7 though. That would probably really get old quick
It's too
because
hard. Yeah.
it was a long day because they came and they shot like all day long and they shot like a million different things for like maybe 4 minutes of video total. It
Right.
was all put together,
Right.
Right.
done, all said and done, but it was exciting, and I didn't actually get to meet Dennis Quaid though because fun fact, he doesn't show up, he just voices over.
Ah,
So
That's like I painted Larry the Cable Guy's house, but he wasn't there. Right. Yes. Okay. Well,
definitely more Randy Quaid speed.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're
Kind of a more,
interesting family.
he would have come and filmed it probably, right?
Yeah. It gives you a lot of good content though for the time, I imagine, because it's not always easy to come up with content. So at least you had a campaign for a little bit of we're going to be on this show. It's approaching, and now you could, after it was out, you could be like, we were on this show. Look at that, So that's at least 4 posts you probably got out of it,
Well, they were actually very picky about um, any social stuff had to be approved,
Oh
and
wow.
we couldn't put anything out until after it aired. And I mean, there were a whole bunch of rules and regulations and things like that, and I don't, do all that well with the whole rules and regulation kind of thing. So Lauren really had to watch me close. I had to definitely be careful about what I said about it. So, but it was a fun experience, and I'm probably not going to quit my day job to go into show business anytime soon.
You have a hybrid role already.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's true. That's true.
for sure.
so
Okay.
I guess I have kind of one final question. I'm wondering if because conveyors are used in PCB manufacturing or assembly processes, right? I'm thinking about Daniel has conveyors that feed into his pick and place, and Sean has kind of a unique conveyor setup because his line is at a 90-degree angle instead of straight. Have you had any crossover? Have you had any clients or projects that were specifically for PCB assembly or?
Yes, as a matter of fact, earlier on in my career, we did some and that was done on a twin track type of conveyor. Actually, one of our largest vendors, FlexLink, has a complete PCB offering, and they've got like 45 different modules and things that go together and all sorts of stuff. And I will be really super honest with you guys because I feel like I can. I don't know a whole lot about it, and so I knew I was going to be talking to you guys today, so I called them and said, hey, what can you tell me about this so that, if somebody asks me a question about it, I don't get this deer in the headlight look. I'm like, I just tell me enough to be dangerous. I don't need to be an expert.
Right.
Give me like the whole trade show pitch. And I mean, interestingly enough, they made me feel like I needed some sort of security clearance to get this information, that, your industry was just like so specialized that perhaps I didn't have the IQ to be able to understand or fully grasp, so so basically, the experience that I have in your industry is probably obsolete, but there is some new technology that I have access to, provided I can pass the security clearance.
Yeah, I guess so.
That comes with getting that information, because I don't know. I mean, I felt like, wow.
Do they know it's 2024? Because it sounds like there's a little bit more of that going
They're
on.
just like, well, why would you be talking about this? I'm like, I don't know.
Why aren't you doing accounting?
So
Great callback.
definitely, they were a little nervous. I don't know if they wanted me talking about their products, since I'm like, look, I will be fully transparent. I mean, it's like, I don't know everything about it, but I can read a brochure. I mean, I'm pretty sure I can figure it out. But so we do have a lot of stuff in for that industry, for your industry. I'm not personally familiar with it, and in the short time that I tried to be, I was met with some resistance, but I'm still working on that. So, if you want to ask me in a few weeks after I've had time to pass that security clearance, I might be able to get you more information on that product line.
I say you get them to send you a demo. We put Daniel on the conveyors, right? And then you press pass, right? And that'll be one of your new TikTok videos.
Hey.
Yeah.
I know this. They're all made in Malaysia. Because they were like, we don't make that here. All of these components are made in Malaysia.
It's kind of weird. Korea and Malaysia have the lockdown, and then everybody private labels off of that. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. But they gave me, and actually I wrote down, I made notes and everything so that I could appear to be intelligent, because
You're crushing it.
Yeah, right. They were like, oh yes, there's AOI and SPI and let's see, what else can I throw out there that will make me sound like I actually tried to do a little bit of homework?
Those are big ones.
Well,
yeah.
The conveyors that we need for our line of work have to have ESD safe belts.
Yeah. We do the static dissipative SMEMA. What's that guy? Does that mean you guys?
Yep.
Don't feel
this is all.
I learned
this is all tickling my brain. Yeah.
So see right there, and they say that there is some interface going to be coming for Nexum, and I'm like, oh no, don't tell me what's coming, just tell me what's already here. And they're just like, well,
don't feel bad. I learned what SEMA was like 2 months ago from Daniel and Elias, and I was like, and they were like, the things that plug into the conveyors. I go, okay, yeah, I know what those are. I never called it the plugger inner thing is, so.
So there's like 45 different modules that we have, and there's like they were telling me they did. Gosh, I took really crappy notes on Post-it.
What about like edge to clearance, like because like some boards don't have big enough borders, and so you have components that are like right up next to the edge. So I think some of them you can have components like 3 millimeters away from the edge and still be okay.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I'll be perfectly honest. I mean,
Kathy, the answer is you say call Sean Kincaid. He'll make a custom carrier for you, so you don't ever have
oh
to
yeah,
worry about that.
There you go.
my friend Sean
Yeah.
makes custom carriers for that, and I
Boom.
highly recommend that you get a hold of him
Yeah,
because
There you go.
he's a very tremendous and valuable resource in that area.
there you go.
I
See,
got
that
you,
sounds like a
Sean.
Chat GPT answer right there. That was the AI script for Sean.
I definitely have you there. I mean, they gave me a bunch of sizes and things, and I don't know what I must have lost that particular Post-it note. But anyway, you guys at least know that I know where I can find some information.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's what it's about.
that's about the extent of the actual experience I have in your industry. But it was a number of years ago, and it was on a twin track conveyor. I do recall.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yes.
So
We
now
knew-
I feel like I've done something relevant to this podcast.
That's what we felt like. Just ask that one last question to pretend we were tying it into what we all do every day, you know.
Yeah.
But mostly we were just looking for a good conversation, and I certainly felt we had that. I hope you enjoyed coming on with us and enjoying
Absolutely, guys.
the-
You know, it has
the
been a pleasure
conversation.
to talk to you. I appreciate you inviting me. I'm humbled that you did. I'm
Do you think
excited.
Lauren would ever come on, or is she like, now that you've come on, she's probably just like, "Bruh, no thanks"?
No, she would definitely, and she will probably take better notes than I did.
Okay.
Honestly, you know, I mean, she's not quite as good at saying, I don't really know, but I'll find out as I am. She's still at that stage in her career where she wants to, you know, seem like she has it all on the ball. I'm at that stage in my career where I'm losing it, and y'all know it.
Well, you know who to talk to. That's all you need to know. You know? That's it. The
That's
rest will
it.
take care of itself.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And it was great getting the chance to have this talk with you. And hopefully I can run into you next week and at least say hi quickly in person. And just thanks again.